Okay, Lili.
Okay. You don't know my name. I have made a timeline. You probably know what the timeline is. Okay. Well, where do we start? We start at the very beginning, when I was born, right? This is the year 1916. I was born in Berlin, Germany. This is the map of Europe. Now, we have Berlin right over here. Can you all see it? It's right up there, in the north of the country, not too far from the water. That's where I was born, and that's where I lived for 17 years. Then we got a new government, a mean chancellor or president by the name of Hitler, who didn't like Jews, and lots of other people didn't like. And so things got to be pretty bad for people who were of the Jewish faith. For instance, I was at that time in high school in my junior year. If I wanted to go to college, I wouldn't be able to. They wouldn't let Jews go to college. They wouldn't let Jews be doctors, professors in schools or universities. They couldn't be dentists. They couldn't be lawyers. They couldn't work for the government. So my parents had very good friends who lived in a small country called Belgium, which is actually right next to Germany. This is a country here. And they wrote a letter to my parents that we know that this Hitler is a very mean person. We have no children. We'd love to have you two girls, I had a younger sister, come and live with us. And my sister was only 13, so they figured she was too young and lived in a different country with different people. And I was 17, and my parents didn't know what to do. So my mother went to the high school and spoke to the principal. And he was a very smart man. He said, look, if I had a daughter, I would send her to Belgium. She would learn French and have new experiences. And if this thing here doesn't last, if we get rid of this terrible guy in a year, she can come back. She can finish her high school, get her degree, and go to college if that's what you want to do, or if that's what she wants to do. Okay, so I'm very grateful that this smart principal told my parents to go. So I went to Belgium, and they speak French. Now, I had had 6 years of high school French, which was many, many years. Here you only have 4 years of foreign language, I believe. And Mrs. O'Brien and I, we had 4 semesters of Spanish. And there I had, let's see, 6 years makes 12 semesters of French. When I got there, I could read. If I listened to the radio, I could understand a little. If people spoke very slowly, I could understand. I couldn't talk. It was just like he didn't come out. So I had to have a lady come to the house and give me lessons in French conversation, so I would be able to speak. So then I went to the high school in Belgium, and I finished my class there. And I was very happy because they had English. And they had had about 2 years of English in that school, like I had had 2 years of English in Germany. And when I found out that we could converse in English when they spoke very slowly, and I spoke very slowly, I didn't speak French with them. For 1 month, I only spoke in English with them. But finally, I learned English. And then in that school, the teachers knew that I could speak French. So they left me alone for about a month. They never asked me to come to the blackboard or to do a test or something. And one day, the geography teacher called me to the blackboard, and she asked me questions. And when I knew and I had never studied, I read the material, but I really didn't study. So when she asked me a question, I knew I gave her the answer. But if she asked me something I didn't know, didn't remember, then I said, I don't understand. But from that moment, I knew I really had to study my lesson. Okay, then finally my parents decided that things got so bad in Germany that they had to leave too. And so they came to this country in 1940. I also tried to come. But I got my immigration papers 1943, when I left Germany for Belgium. 1940, I got my university degree. So this is a document. When I came, I don't know what it's like. It's like 5 or 6 long, white sheets of paper stapled together, or rather sewn together with red thread. And then on the front page, you give your name, your description, how tall you are, how much you weigh, brown eyes, blonde hair, whatever. And then it says, my maiden name was Harold, Lily Harold is authorized to come to the United States. And on the bottom of that first page, there was a red seal. You know what a seal is?
Yes.
It's like a big label with an imprint of the United States emblem, let's say the eagle emblem. And then 2 nice red ribbons. So I had this beautiful paper. Right. This paper is only valid for 4 months. That means you have 4 months to come to the United States. If you didn't make it within those 4 months, the paper wasn't good enough. Now, as I said, I got it the day Germans invaded Belgium. That means Belgium, where I lived, was at war. So the trains didn't run on time, the buses didn't run at all. And if you took a train, it might only go a certain way, and then you have to walk and then see if somebody on the road would give you a lift, sometimes armed truck. Well, anyhow, to make a long story short, when I finally got to Portugal, so I was here from Berlin, I went to Belgium. For Belgium, when I got the paper, I went to France, Spain, and came to Portugal. Now, let's see where I was. Somewhere around here, the border between Spain and Portugal. At that time, lots of refugees tried to come to Portugal because during the war, this town of Lisbon was the only place from where ships went to the United States. So there were lots of people, and Portugal is a very, very small country. So they were very, very strict with the people they would let in. So when they saw that my beautiful American visa was to expire in a few days, they said, you can't go to Lisbon. You stay right here on the border. There's lots of other refugees, immigrants, who were hoping to go to the United States or some other country where there wasn't war. Well, anyhow, so I had to start all over. In order to get the immigration visa, you had to find a person that would guarantee a person living in the United States making a good amount of money, guarantee that this immigrant who would come would not be on the streets or begging the government for welfare or for all kinds of money, but that person living in the United States would be what they call your sponsor. They would take care of you when you came and help you when you were in trouble. So I had to write to the same person and tell her, I'm sorry, this is a war, and I couldn't make it, please send me another paper. So finally, I was able to leave Lisbon in 1941, and I arrived here in 10 days later. In these days, planes were only for the army, anyhow, for the war. So you traveled by ship. It took 10 days to go from here to New York. Here's the globe. Here's the globe. Let me show you. So, let's say this one is over here, and the tip. Can you all see it?
Yeah, the green one.
Okay. And New York, the New is over here. Now, there is the time difference. I don't know whether you learned about time difference. That means the sun rises in the east. It gets up earlier in Lisbon than it goes in New York. So there's a difference of 6 hours. When it's noon in Lisbon, it's only 6 a.m. in New York. So when we were on the ship, every day the captain would tell us we had to change the hour. So we set our watch back maybe 45 minutes or whatever. Now, the last night that I was on ship, I wanted to see the lights of New York. So I spent all night on the deck of the ship, watching the lights. First they were like tiny little points, and they got bigger and bigger and bigger, and finally in the morning I saw the Statue of Liberty. So I made it. Now, officials from the government came on board the ship to make sure that we all had the right papers to become immigrants and land in New York City. So the man comes over to me and says, show me the immigration paper, and he looks at it, and he says, that's fine, everything is okay. And he starts putting it in his pocket, a briefcase. And I said, sir, this is my paper. Take it away from me. I was terribly scared. Because in Europe, everybody had a piece of identification. Now, some people have your fathers or mother going to work, maybe a thing around their neck, or maybe the teachers with an ID. But in those days, nobody did in the United States. And the man said, don't worry, you don't need anything. So, as I said, my parents were here already the year before I had come. So they came to the pier, and they got a taxi. And I hadn't seen them for 3 years, so we were very happy to be there. And they kept saying, no, we take this taxi. The ship landed in Brooklyn, and it was a long trip all the way up to Washington Heights, where we live. I still live. And it was $5. $5 in those days was like maybe $100 today, maybe more, I don't know. And my parents were refugees, immigrants, we had a hard time making a living, so that $5 was a big amount of money. But I kind of didn't appreciate, because I didn't know what it meant to live in the United States, and the $5 was. And then I said, I want to see Broadway. So they said, well, you see Broadway when we come home. I said, but you don't know Times Square. All people in Europe think of Broadway as Times Square, 42nd Street, where all the movie theaters are, and so I didn't leave my family. I was very lucky coming here because I had my parents here who had an apartment. I had a room of my own. So I had a roof over my head and loving parents. And I had to go and look for a job. And I knew English. I could ask my way, go to store, take the stuff away, apply for a job. And I knew English, and I worked in an office before, and I knew how to take dictation, and then type letters in English and French and German, and some Spanish. And so in order to get a job wasn't easy, because in those days, the United States had a very bad time economically. Many people had been out of jobs in previous years. And the United States was just beginning to get on their feet, but it was still hard to get a job. So in order to get a job, I had to go to an employment agency, which is an office where they get calls from bosses that need people, and people like myself who need a job over here. And then they will send you to the company. If you get the job, you have to pay this agency. So I got a job for $12 a week working in an office, and I was supposed to pay the agency $12, but I could pay like $1 every week. And after a short while, I got a raise. They gave me $14. And somehow or other, the agency found out that I was now making $14. And they insisted that I had to pay them $14 rather than $12, because they took advantage of me because I was a newcomer, I was an immigrant. So what could I do? Now, the job that I had, I was hired because the boss was from Belgium, from Brussels, in the town where I had lived. Not only was he from the same town, but actually he was from the same area. He had lived 2 blocks away from where I had lived. And then he had a daughter whose first name was Lili. So that decided him to give me the job. Okay, now, as I said, my English was pretty good, and it was getting better. But what I did have trouble with was reading newspapers, especially the first page, what you call the headlines, when there's not a full sentence, but just a few words. Like, let's say for today, it might say, Bill and Boris fight over NATO. And I didn't know who Bill was. I didn't know who Boris was. No, who's Bill? Everybody knows who Bill is? Right, very good. And who would be Boris? Boris, yes. Very good. And we're fighting over NATO. Okay. Anyhow, so those were my experience. And for fun, I joined a club which was called the New World Club. These were all people, refugees, immigrants who come from Europe. And we would go on walks in the city, to parks, to museums. We would go to see strange places. For instance, once we went to night court to see how a judge holds a session in court. And then we went for walks in the woods in for hikes. And that's how I met my husband. He was French and he knew very little English. You know what he could say? The window is opposite the door. And when he went to a restaurant, if there was a line, he said, give me the same, give me the same. That's about all he knew when we met.
So what was his name, Lili?
Pardon me?
What was your husband's name?
Michel Rausen.
Michel.
He was a very nice fellow. And we had lots of fun. We liked to hike and walk, and we liked lots of things together. So in 1942 I got married. So now I'm going to show you the pictures that I bought. Here's a picture of my mother and myself. The year that I was born. The year that I was born. He was about 9 months old. And you see I have very few hair.
I can't see.
Who can see? I'm sorry, to put it further down. Can everybody see now?
Yes.
Okay. Now, you see, I have very little hair. My father was a soldier in the war. That was the First World War. I mean, I've gone through 2 wars. Anyhow, so he was away when I was born. And after a while, he got a furlough to see his new, leave to see his new daughter. And my mother said, well, go in the park. She's with a babysitter. So my father looked and couldn't find me. So he never met me. So he comes home very unhappy. He says, there's no little girl, there's only a little boy. So my mother said, that little boy is your daughter. Now here I'm about 3 or 3.5 years old with my mother. Here I'm 4 years old. Can you all see?
Yes.
Okay. I was very proud of this picture. It was always on the desk of my father, and I thought I looked very cute there with a big bow on head. This is the apartment building where I lived for about 14 years before I went to Belgium. It's a 5-story building. This picture was taken a few years ago by a friend of mine who lives in Berlin.
That's in Berlin?
This is in Berlin, right, where we lived I lived for about 12 years. And we had a very large apartment, and it was on the corner of a side street, like you might have Amsterdam and 109th Street or Broadway and 109th Street. And part of the apartment was on the big street, which was facing a park, and the other side was a side street with lots of stores, like grocery store, dairy store, whatever. And there were 2 balconies. There was one facing the park and the other one facing the side street. And here you see the side street. Okay, that's that. And you can look at it later if you want to. Now here is a picture of, here I'm 10 years old. I'm over here wearing a dress with a white collar. And this was taken in front of a hotel that belonged to an aunt of mine, and my parents had sent me there during vacation. This is a picture here from the high school, and I am, let's see, where am I? I'm over here. Yeah, here's the arrow. I'm over here. And this is my classroom teacher. This is taken in the yard. I'm here. I'm here. This is taken in the schoolyard. You know, where we went from here. And this is our classroom teacher. This is our be 12 or 13, sitting on the front balcony doing embroidery. That's what the girls did in those days. This picture is taken in Berlin in 1933 with my father and my sister. That was the time I left for Belgium. So maybe I was 8 before. Pardon me? Now this is my father leading me to the altar to get married. Have you all seen it? Okay, now I'm going to show you the document. First of all, I'm going to show you my birth certificate. Well, this is a photocopy. That's not the original. The original is in the safe, so I don't take it out. Oh, I'm sorry, excuse me. And it says here that on March 14, 1916, at 1:30 in the afternoon, the Germans are very precise, Johanna Helen Held, born Cohn, wife of Alfred George Held, gave birth to a daughter named Lina Lott. Okay, and then the health department signs and everybody signs. Okay, now that's this. The other document is the important one. This is the citizenship paper.
There we
Now
go.
this is when you come to the United States as an immigrant, you can apply to become a citizen. You have to fill out certain papers, and at that time it took 5 years. I don't know what it is, I know.
Should get you a drink of water.
Now, on my birth certificate, my official name was Lina Lotti, my first name, after my two grandmothers. But I was always called Lili. Only when I was doing something bad, when I was about to be punished, my mother called, Lina Lotti, come here. So I knew. So I hated that name. Also, it made my life very complicated because in school, as you'll see from the certificate, it's always Lili. So when I was about to become a citizen, I told my parents, I'm sorry about my grandmothers. I never met them, but I cannot live with that name. I have to make my life easier, and I want to have my official name, Lili. So I'm always Lili. All my papers are Lili. So this is the citizenship papers, and here was a picture, and I had to sign. And it says that personal description, holder of date of naturalization, age 30, sex female, complexion medium, color eyes brown, hair brown, height 5 feet 4, married, former nationality German, and I signed, and then the judge signs. It's dated December 46, 1946, I'm sorry. December 23rd, 1946. Okay, now here on the back of it, it says, name changed by decree of court from Lina Lotte Rausen to Lili Rausen as part of naturalization. So then my life has been made easy.
Louise got you some water there, Lily. Behind you some water.
You know what I mean? Thank you.
Did you kids see any of those kind of documents at Ellis Island?
Yes.
Documents like birth certificates, immigration papers? I thought you probably did.
Okay, now I'm going to show you
Jenny, did you hear me?
report cards. Now, this here is my last report card from Germany. This was issued September 29, 1933. I had already left, but they sent it to my parents. So Lili held, here's the class, which was the junior year of high school. Now, here are the different subjects. So we had religion. Okay, good. Religion, yeah. Good.
See how you did.
German is that satisfactory. French, satisfactory. English, good. Latin, good. History, good, sometimes not. Geography, good, sometimes not. Math, arithmetic good, physics good, chemistry good, biology good, drawing terrible, music terrible, gym, so. So that was my German. Now
That's
here is the
interesting.
one from Belgium. This is the one from Belgium. In Belgium, they speak two languages. They speak French, and they speak another language which is called Flemish or Dutch. I think somebody's here from Holland? Well, it's a similar language like that. And so everything is written in both languages, every official document. So here again are the various subjects. This was dated July 12, 1935. So this is the time that I graduated from high school.